can be fraught with danger and can induce a sense of trepidation in all but the most hardy or the most ignorant. Top Gear magazine, in association with Lyons and Leicester, have decided to make a video to help you steer a path through the hazards you may face and the dangers that can lurk in finding the right car at the right price. We aim to help you decide what to buy, where to buy, what to look out for, then we'll show you how to conduct a test drive, and finally how to haggle and clinch the deal. Oh, and don't bother making notes while you're watching this tape, because a summary of contents with useful telephone numbers and contacts is available at the end in a burst of visual information. All you have to do is get to the end titles, freeze your video and then advance it frame by frame and read off the information. Above all, we hope that when you've picked your way through the minefield and avoided all the obvious pitfalls, that you'll be able to have the car of your choice at the right price and that you'll both live happily ever after. When it comes to buying a used car, remember to be practical. Certainly think about what you want, but also think about what you realistically need. There can be quite a gap between the two. Forget about glamour and posing power. Although you may be in love with your slinky coupe, will your nuclear family really fit in the back? So let me bruise your automotive ego. You might be better with a 5-door or one of the new breed of people carriers. Think about the kind of driving you'll be doing. Your idea of bliss may be a 5-speed gearbox and a windy B-road. But if you spend the majority of your time negotiating city centre traffic jams, then an automatic and power steering will be a lot more useful. If you do a lot of motorway driving, then a 900cc engine just won't do the job. By the same token, a V8 isn't going to be very frugal on the school run. If you do have a small garage or a narrow drive, then measure it to make sure that the car will fit. If you are planning on leaving it outside, then you need to think in terms of a good alarm or immobiliser to keep the criminal fraternity at bay, and build the cost of the system into your budget. It's always sensible to price parts. Running costs vary hugely between makes and models. Ring a reputable garage and price a shopping basket of parts. Brake pads, exhaust, tyres, clutch, and ask about servicing costs. Take the time to give your insurance broker a call. There are 18 different insurance groups and their premiums range from reasonable to astronomical. Make sure you know which one your car falls into before you hand over your cash. It may seem strange, but when you buy a second-hand car, it pays to keep a weather eye on its future resellability. When the time comes for you to offload your car, you don't want it hanging around the classified ads for months, draining time, energy and money while you try and find a buyer. Stick to solid colours. Red, black and white sell well, but anemic pastel shades can devalue a car by up to 10%. Image is important. The Renault Clio has pizzazz and good resale values because of its youthful Nicole Papa image. But a maroon Ford Escort is deeply dull and depreciates rapidly. A sunroof, air conditioning, 5 speeds, a good stereo or leather trim could be an added attraction. Assess your needs and keep your feet firmly on the ground. Buy the right size of car with the right engine and transmission. Cost, parts and servicing and get a quote from your insurers. Look ahead. Colour, good specification and image are what future buyers will be looking for. Your car should have all three. When you're looking for a used car, there are 3 established sources. There are private sellers, dealers and auctions. All of them have their merits, and if you play the game right, you can end up with a good car at a sensible price. Avoid fly-by-night dealers who set up overnight on a piece of waste ground only to disappear a week later. If you're brave enough to get past the Doberman on the gate and stupid enough to want to invest your money in a tarted-up paint job and a clocked odometer, then you need your head testing because there aren't any bargains to be had here. If you do want to buy from a dealership, you have 2 options. The first is the large franchise dealership and the second is the smaller independent non-franchised operation. Franchise dealers are in the business of keeping customers happy and maintaining their reputations, so the standard of service is usually high. The payoff is that the customer forks out a big premium on every car for the pleasure of peace of mind. You can expect a large stock of clean used cars with full service history, genuine mileages and a 12-month parts and labour warranty. Seek out dealers who are long established, have a variety of well-presented cars on offer, and employ knowledgeable staff who avoid the hard sell. Ensure that the garage makes a full disclosure of any reconditioning work done to the vehicle prior to sale. And if there are any niggling faults like wiring, bodywork or trim, insist they're rectified before you sign on the dotted line. Check the warranty very carefully. Warranties are not a panacea for all the ills your car may suffer. So make sure you know what is and isn't covered under the fixed terms. If you buy at a dealer's, then you'll also have some redress under the Sale of Goods Act, should your car have a major fault at a later date. Non-franchised independent dealers often have a wider variety of cars available at a range of prices. As with a franchise dealer, the independent benefits most from being a convenient place for customers to choose cars, but the standard of after-sales care rarely reaches the levels of a franchised operation. Ask to see any documentation and be sure to write down the previous owner's name from the V5 registration document. Get hold of their telephone number through directory inquiries and ask them some pertinent questions. As before, check the dealer has a long-established reputation and make sure the cars are well prepared and ready for an immediate road test. If they bring out the jump leads, then walk away. Buying from private sellers seems like a cheaper option. But be aware that the classified ads in national newspapers and newsagents' windows are home to thousands of dodgy motors. You won't get a warranty, and if you do buy a stolen car, you'll have absolutely no redress under the law. Approach classified ads with studied scepticism. Truth is the first casualty of war, and when it comes to selling cars, it's a battleground out there in suburbia. Dealers should place a T at the end of their ad to denote trade, but the less scrupulous try and masquerade as private sellers. Phrases such as "will accept part exchange" and "lovely straight car" should set alarm bells ringing. Avoid any ads which ask you to make them an offer or advise good for a year or a reasonable runner, as the car will usually be a wreck and the owner will be trying it on. Beware of any ads that ask you to ring at a specific time or get you to ring a mobile phone number. You never know what may be happening at the other end.
Good afternoon, St. Winston's Vicarage. Ah, yes, the Fiesta. Yes, it's sitting outside resplendent in a halo of golden sunlight, blessed with the finest mechanicals that the Lord could... Would you excuse me 1 second? One of the parishioners is here with the church flowers. Thank you. I'll be right back. Hello, Sleep Easy Rest Home for retired gentlefolk. Ah, yes, Mrs. Walker's Nova. Do you know, damn fine car. If I had the money, I'd buy that myself. If only, if only. Would you excuse me 1 second? One of the residents, she's dropped her teeth in the soup. Yes, right back.
Hello? Colt, look, mate, I can't hold on. I've got some soppy old tart on about that Nova. I know, mate, one born every minute. I'll tell you, that car is so old, it'll get a birthday card off the Queen. Now then, look. That Sierra, can you knock about 40,000 off the clock? I don't want to take the mick with it. Hold on, mate, hold on. I'll call you back. Call you back.
Hello? Come straight to the point when you first make contact with the seller. First question, I've rung about the car. If the answer is which one, then you know you're talking to a dealer. Ask direct questions about the state of the bodywork, the mileage and recent repairs to get an accurate picture of the vehicle.
Oh, hello? Yeah. Oh, yes, no.
For most people, buying at an auction is a terrifying thought, but there are some good deals to be had if you keep your head and follow some basic rules. First, go to the larger auction houses. The standard of service and cars is very much higher. And also sit in on an auction to get some idea of how the system works and the sort of prices the cars are going for.
When you're making such a major purchase as a used car, you must do your homework. You must decide what car it is you wish to buy. You must decide how much money you have got to spend, and then you must stick to that plan.
Right, and when you're actually in the auction itself, I mean, that can be very intimidating. So what would be your advice to someone in an auction for the first time?
Well, it isn't intimidating, it's exciting, it's exhilarating, and my advice is not to get carried away, to stick to your plan. Listen to the auctioneer very carefully, bid clearly, and only pay the amount of money that you can afford to pay. all the cars that we sell, the buyer is protected for a small indemnity fee. He's protected against the vehicle being stolen, so therefore he has good title. Is protected against any outstanding hire purchase. Is extending against the vehicle being a total vehicle loss, i.e. major accident damage, and of course it's protected against the odometer reading being incorrect.
Now, is that true of all auctions?
No.
So you have to be careful where you go.
I would strongly recommend you're very careful where you go.
Now, despite all that, and even if you take an expert advice, you can end up with a complete lemon. So what do? Do you have some form of warranty?
Yes. The whole point about an auction is that the auctioneer is working on the vendor's declaration, in addition to our own mechanical check on it. If the vehicle proves to be not what it was claimed, then you bring it back, and then we give you your money back, or whatever.
Is there a time limit on that?
Yes, there is. It's 24 hours from the date of purchase.
Okay, so you've got your car, you're delighted with it. How do you pay for it?
Well, the beauty of auctions is that there are only really one way to pay, and that's with cash. Now, cash isn't in terms of pound notes. Cash is in the form of a cheque, a banker's draft, or whatever. If it's a banker's draft, of course, you can take the car away immediately. If you pay by cheque, we have to wait until the cheque is cleared, we have cleared funds, and then you can come and take the car, or we'll deliver it for you.
So leave your credit cards at home, though?
Exactly.
1850, 1850, 1850, 1850, 1850, 19.
Auctions are dominated by the trade, so you're bidding against professionals. Auctioneers clear hundreds of cars a day, and the pace is frenetic. But if you want to get a bargain, you must stay cool. The cardinal rule is, if in doubt, don't bid. Whoever you buy from, remember, avoid bomb site dealers if you don't want to be fleeced. Franchise dealers offer a good standard of service, but at a price. Independent non-franchise dealers offer a wide range of cars, but after-sales service can be patchy and prices are high. Private sales are cheap, but the dangers are many. Avoid dealers in disguise and contact previous owners. Buying at auction is cheap but risky. Know your car, know your auction house, and keep within your budget. After a house, a car is probably one of the most expensive purchases you'll ever make, so it's worth investing a considerable amount of time and energy in assessing your purchase. Why not take a friend along? After all, there is safety in numbers, and better still, if you've got a friend who's got some knowledge in the motor trade. Well, I'm lucky because I've got my chum Alan here today, who knows all about cars. So, where do we start then, Alan?
Right, well, let's start by getting in the car. Right, the first thing you notice, central locking doesn't work, which is quite an expensive item on this sort of car.
Right, so it wouldn't be a very good start.
No,
then.
not at all.
Right, okay. Oh, now it's very grubby inside, doesn't it?
Well, if you look at all the seat, it's all worn. The springs have gone in the seats, which is quite an expensive item again. So, and if you had to retrim this, you'll never get it to match the rest of the car.
What does this sort of wear and tear tell you about the car, though?
It's done lots of mileage.
Right.
It's lots of mileage. If you lift the mat up, you can see that there's wear on the rubber. All the pedals, the rubbers are worn out on the pedals, which is another sign that it's done a lot of high mileage.
Right, okay, well, let's get in there. I have to say it's something I don't do lightly, dressed in a white jacket. It's filthy, isn't it?
Yes.
Ugh. Right.
Right, another signs. Steering wheel's all worn out, which is another sign that it's done mileage. It's not good signs.
Obviously, I've heard about clocking, but what I wouldn't know is how to spot if a car being clocked. So what do you look for?
Well, the main thing to do is if you look at the speedo, you can tell if all the dials are out of line, it's been clocked, because they won't be all even.
I would say, so far interior-wise, you're unimpressed, Alan.
Not very impressed at all.
Okay, let's see if the outside's any
Okay.
better. Okay, obviously I know you should look at the bodywork, but I don't really know what I should be looking for.
Well, if you look down the side of a car, you can see, like, this one's has had some filler work because it's all cracking around there and the paintwork, and it's got loads and loads of rust all along it. And you should take that in consideration these days, because if a car goes for an MOT, it's got too much rust, especially along the sills, that's an MOT failure.
Now, talking of strange paint jobs, I thought this at the back, and even I noticed this. This isn't just because the car's dirty, is it?
No, that's
What's that?
that's how what they call a blowing.
What does that mean?
Well, it's base and lacquer, so they've tried to do a blowing. Rather than paint the whole boot lid, they've tried to just do half the car, half the boot lid.
Right. Now, this is a very obvious spray job, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are more subtle ways of disguising when you've had a respray.
I've got a better example inside if
I'd
you
like
want
to
to
see
have a look.
that, yeah.
Right, this is the example I was telling you about outside.
Yeah.
If you have a look along here, you can see where there's paint on the rubber, which isn't really a bad thing. It just shows that sometime in its life it's had some paintwork done to it.
So you might just want to be a bit cautious
Just
about
a bit
that.
cautious, yeah.
Right, okay. Now, even I know not to touch this one. I look at the interior and the exterior, but I know really if you're going to buy a second-hand car, you should look underneath. But what should we be looking for?
Well, it's an idea to take a screwdriver or something you can poke a seal with, because although this is a newish car, if you buy a second-hand one that's old, seals can wear out and they can be quite expensive. It's just an idea to go along and tap the seals. And the other thing you should take into consideration is with a lot of modern cars now, they have catalytic converters on, and if they go wrong, they're very expensive as well.
Right, so again, just something to be aware of.
That's
Could
right.
cost you money.
Yeah.
Right. Now, we're at the back end of the car talking about bumpers. Now, this one's had a bit of a bash, hasn't it?
Yes, but being an old metal bumper, it's not too bad. It's obviously been in an accident sometime, but that's only sort of like £15 to £20 to get repaired.
So it's not too bad.
No, but on the other hand, this has been a newer car with a plastic bumper.
Fair bit of damage here.
That's had quite a bit of damage, and what you should do is take that into consideration when buying the car, because that's like £200.
Right, so a lot more expensive than the other one.
That's correct, as this is only sort of £15, £20.
Yeah.
And if they're painted, then you've got to pay the labour to have them painted, which is about another £100.
So make sure you take that off the price.
You should take it off the price.
Right. Now, Graham, Alan tells me you know everything mechanical.
That's very kind of you, yes. Now that's oil, checking your dipstick oil.
Yeah.
If it was contaminated, it would be a creamy colour.
Right.
Now that's okay, a nice colour.
Okay, fine, so that's okay, we don't need
Yep.
to worry about that.
You certainly don't. And if you check the top, you get the same colour.
Right.
But if it hadn't been changed regularly, you'd be all crusty and
Right. And
carbon.
you'd know the car hadn't been looked
Yeah,
after
that's
properly.
right, yeah.
Right. Okay.
And then if you check the water as well, you sometimes get contamination in the water with oil. That's nice and clear.
Right.
There's no little globules of oil there. But so that's all okay.
Now, I suppose we have to listen to the engine, do we?
Yep.
Okay. Right, I'm not quite sure what you'll be listening to, but I know you'll talk me through it, won't you?
Okay, so start her up.
Yeah. Right. I don't know, but that sounds a bit... Is that like a tapping noise?
Yeah, that's a little tapping noise.
Do I
from the
need to
top.
worry about that?
Not too much at all, no, that's okay. It's a deeper knock if you listen for. In fact, you've got that, then you've got bigger troubles. You know, I wouldn't buy the car, basically.
Right, understood. Right, I suppose we need to listen to the exhaust,
Yes,
don't we?
yep.
Right. So what should we be listening for then? Or looking for?
Looking for, yeah, blue smoke. Now, if you first start the engine up and it puffs blue smoke,
Yeah.
it's signs of worn valve guides or seals going. But if it's blue smoking all the time, that's a sign of piston rings, and that's bad.
So be very wary.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get on board, shall we? And what should we be looking for inside?
Check the clutch.
Right.
Right. Another thing you can do is check the clutch by sticking the car into fifth gear, putting the handbrake on, and drive away, and just accelerate a bit more than you would do usually.
Ooh.
And if it stalls like that, the clutch is fine.
Oh, right, that's a good sign.
Yeah, oh yeah. But if it kept going, it means the clutch is going on it and it's on its way out.
Now, I know there's been an awful lot to take in there, a lot of information, but finally just one thought. Never do that dressed in Armani. When it comes to assessing the mechanical condition of the car, it's well worthwhile bringing in the professionals. Both the AA and the RAC offer inspection services, and most independent garages are more than happy to assess the car's roadworthiness for you. They'll produce a written document as to its health. Now, the next bit is the documentation, and it's very important that you go through that with a fine-tooth comb. Look for cars with history. A full service record really counts, particularly when you come to sell the car. Try to contact the garage who actually undertook the work and speak to the person who specifically worked on this car. It's even worthwhile going through some of the receipts you might find in the glove compartment. They give you a really good indication of how the car's been treated throughout its life. But most important of all is the vehicle registration document, or V5. This can give you vital clues as to the car's history if you know how to read it. Check to see that the car hasn't had a colour change. This could mean it's had an accident. Check that it was first registered in this country. Imports are worth less second-hand. If the previous owners haven't had it for long, be nosy, ask them why. And finally, check that all the numbers tally, or you could be looking at what's known in the trade as a ringer. Well, nice car.
Well, it seems that, and in fact it is a nice car, but it's not the car that it purports to be.
Oh, what's wrong with it?
Well, it is in fact a stolen vehicle from here in London, and if you were to check on its identity, it is supposed to be a left-hand drive import from America. And as you can quite clearly see, it's not a left-hand drive car.
Now that sounds to me like a very, very sophisticated scam. How did they get away with that?
Well, in that particular case, they've changed all the identity features on the car to represent the ones on the American vehicle. However, they're not normally as sophisticated as that in many of the scams that they operate.
So give me some other examples.
Well, for instance, they may be as simple as changing the number plates with a vehicle that they see on the street of the same kind.
So how does someone like me looking for a second-hand car make sure they're not caught out by a ringer?
Well, there are a lot of things you can do, and one of them, of course, is you can check with HPI, Hire Purchase Information. If you give them your registration number over the telephone, they have a list of computer indexes which will have various references to the car number that you're checking with them. For instance, they can tell you whether or not there are any finance outstanding on the vehicle, or if it belongs to somebody else, for instance, it's a lease vehicle. Or they can tell you if it's been seriously damaged previously in its life, and of course, if the car you're looking at obviously hasn't been, there may be something dodgy in its history.
You may think you could spot a car like this, but document fraud is getting ever more sophisticated and ringing is rife. But fear not. If you want peace of mind, give HPI a call on 01722 422 422. Supply them with the vehicle registration number and 17-digit chassis VIN number, and they make a thorough check of the vehicle's history on their database. For £28.50, they'll tell you whether your potential purchase has ever been stolen, ringed, written off, or has outstanding finance. And if you find out within a year that the car you've bought is stolen or has outstanding finance, then HPI, depending on certain terms and conditions, will compensate you up to £9,000. So remember, look for signs of clocking and accident damage, and make sure you use a reputable garage to assess the mechanical condition of the car, and look through the car's documentation really carefully. Always get an HPI on the vehicle. It's £28.50, really well spent. The number to phone, 01722 422 422. When you've found a car, given it a full interior, bodywork and mechanical check, and looked over the history and documentation, then it's time for a test drive. What you're after from your half-an-hour drive is a general impression of how the car feels on the road. Always make sure that the engine is cold before a test drive. If you have to hang on the key, then there could be a duff battery or weak starter motor, or it could mean poor engine compression. Either way, get the vendor to pay for a tune-up and battery test before you buy. Watch the gauges and lights. The oil pressure light should come on when the ignition is on and the engine is off. But as soon as the engine fires, the light should go out. If it flickers when you're driving or refuses to go out, then you've got low oil pressure and major engine work ahead. The gear stick should slide easily into first time. If there's a significant amount of resistance, then you're looking at transmission problems. When you pull away, the biting point of the clutch should be halfway up the pedal's travel. If it bites any later, then the clutch is worn. A dull thud from under the car as you change gear could mean costly differential problems. Test the Synchromesh by making fast gear changes. A grinding noise when moving up or down could mean a weak linkage, and a new gearbox would be expensive. Make sure the temperature gauge works. If it doesn't move, then the thermostat is dead. If it heads for the red and the cooling fan cuts in, then you could be looking at leaky hoses or a damaged radiator. How does the steering feel? Well, if the car wanders on the road or there's significant judder from the steering wheel, then you could be looking at tracking realignment, wheel balancing and a track rod end replacement, or more seriously, a new steering rack or a bent chassis. On a clear stretch of straight road and when it's safe, give the brakes a good strong dab. If you feel the car lurch to one side, then you've probably got a seized caliper. Finally, use your ears. If you hear a metallic screech when you're braking, it could mean worn discs or brake pads. If you hear a blowing noise from underneath the car, then it may mean you need a new exhaust system. When you pull away, if you hear a screeching sound, well, it could mean you need a new fan belt, or worse still, an alternator, or the water pump is on the way out. Trust your first impressions. Watch for worn gearboxes. Clunks and thunks could prove expensive. Keep an eye on the lights and gauges. They'll give you vital information about the engine's condition. Pay special attention to the steering and brakes. And listen out for those odd noises which betray worn parts. The British are traditionally embarrassed when it comes to talking about money, but there's no profit in being a wallflower. So get one of those current price guides you can get from any newsagent, or look at the used price pages in the back of the Top Gear magazine. When you've decided you want to make a bid for a car, then do just that. Don't give the seller what they're asking. Make a sensible bid and be prepared to haggle. If they won't soften the price at all, then walk away. The vendor will come back with a counter offer, and then it's down to you to beat the price down. Make use of all that information you've gleaned from your inspection and road test. Price the parts and labour you think necessary to bring the car up to scratch. Let the vendor know you've done your homework and have looked at plenty of other cars besides his. Be flexible and honest, and you should come out with a deal which suits you and reflects the car's true value. Having done the deal, it's time to hand over the folding stuff. These days, there are two main routes to financing the car of your dreams: hire purchase or a loan. HP is available from finance houses and increasingly through car dealers themselves, and involves paying a deposit and then settling the balance in regular instalments. The upside is that if you're in employment, it'll be fairly easy to arrange HP. The downside that the finance company owns the car until you've paid off the loan. If you want to avoid buying on the never-never, then banks and building societies offer loan facilities. These days, it's quick and easy to arrange a loan, even if you don't have a home to secure it against. And the annual percentage rate, or APR, a form of interest rate which allows you to compare loans, often means that you can find one that will be cheaper than buying on HP. Take a professional approach to negotiating. The vendor will often expect to drop the price a little, so haggle hard. Know what price you want to pay and keep within that budget. Finance isn't the minefield it once was. If you're earning a wage, you should be able to get an unsecured loan. If you need to compare what different loans are offering, then look carefully at their APRs. Well, here we are at the end of the road, and I hope that we've made it an easier journey for you. Remember the basic rules. Buy a car that suits your needs, not your aspirations, for the money you can afford. Be careful who you buy it from. A reputable dealer is the seller who's the most to lose. Keep your eyes skinned when it comes to condition and documents. Make sure you drive the car yourself, and finally, don't be afraid to haggle. Bear all this in mind and you should have a clear path through the minefield.